I saw recently that the like one of the guys from Disney has made a new streaming service called Quibi, which is basically like seven. Like, bear with me. This is gonna sound like I'm going off the fucking rails.
No. When you said the first word you said, I knew that this was going to sound like it's going off the rails, but it's going to be great. Like, I literally could hear it in your voice. So let's go.
So yeah, I can't remember the old boy's name, but he's like invested a lot of money, and a lot of famous people invested a lot of money in this new thing called Quibi, which is basically like shows and news and information and movies.
But 10 minutes of it.
But 10 minutes, all designed, not just 10 minutes, but also designed to be specifically watched on your phone.
Yes.
And it's kind of, I feel like all this conversation about kind of reading and people not being literate and stuff, a lot of it comes around like attention span. And like this sort of like, I feel like there's been a larger conversation about people's attention span possibly since the internet began, where everyone's just like, oh my God, kids these days. Or maybe even not even that, maybe video games. Like
video games, I think was
the beginning of it. It was like
big instigator of that conversation. Yeah.
Of like everyone like, oh, these fucking kids have got no attention span. They can't read a book anymore. They can't like do any of this. And then it's kind of like, instead,
I'm sure radio and TV also instigated it to some extent when they happened.
I'm sure, but like instead of kind of that attitude of like, isn't that bad? Isn't that bad that our attention span through this kind of like advancement of technology is like weakened to the point that we feel like reading a book is a chore? But now instead it's like, oh no, let's lean into that. This is the only way this shit is gonna go. So let's like build infrastructure and an entire streaming service dedicated to this lack of attention, and then also cater to it in basically another, like make the YouTube of even less attention. Which is
basically the TikTok of real things.
It's the TikTok of Netflix basically. And
the TikTok of Netflix. It sounds like, so fucking foreign.
It's just like, and then I don't know.
If you said that to me in the 1990s, I literally, my brain would collapse. The TikTok of Netflix. What the fuck are you talking about? But yeah, that's it.
That is literally it. And like, I'm like you, Angie. I'm someone that really like fucking loves cinema, loves critically looking at cinema, and I feel like a large part of it and how cinema is such a impactful thing is that it takes you 2 hours to like get immersed into a story and a character and like
it transports you to a different place.
Yeah, like the reason I gave a shit that fucking, like, sorry, spoilers alert, that fucking Jet was Sin at the end of Final Fantasy X was that I'd spent 120 fucking hours getting there, okay? Like, if it had happened in 2 fucking minutes, I'm not invested.
Yeah, I mean, you got through that game pretty quick, Jake. That's a long game.
That is, I mean, 20 hours, that's pretty respectable in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, that's really, with that game, I mean, that's at least a 35-hour first time around.
Even the process of writing a script, you, as a writer, you have to establish the world. You have to build the exposition. You know, you have to get people to give a shit about the characters. You have to have plot. You have to have payoff. There's a whole process that goes into writing a script that resonates with people. And the same thing with theory. And that's not to say that all theorists are good writers, because there are some theorists that are just awful fucking writers that are terrible, like independent. Yeah, but then that's the reason why I really like somebody like Mark Fisher, because he was my first kind of foot in the door into theory, especially because he used a lot of pop cultural references, and he was a good writer. He made it easy to fucking read. He made it easy to read. But even the stuff that is not easy to read, that's dense and that uses old language or whatever, it's still possible to penetrate it. It just takes a while. Like sex, you gotta like, you smooth it over a little bit. You gotta get things. You gotta get the
canola oil out.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just, I feel like it's the same with everything. Like you can watch like, you know, videos about stuff. You can watch a film about something, but it all will affect you in slightly a different way. And you're so right. What you were saying, Plebe. Reading about these ideas makes you, as you said, like ruminate about them and then kind of come back to them. Like watching a video about it makes you able to kind of easily understand the surface level of something, and I feel like I'd love to bring up again like the thing that we were mentioning on Doug's podcast, that the book I was reading, The Ragged Trousers Philanthropist. It's like theory fiction. It's like this combination of like telling exploring theory through a fictional story of like working class people. And like the way that that's done is like another way that a story is going to stay in your mind and you're going to think about that. But if that's even like some cryptic shit, because then you're going to be thinking about those as the messages of it.
Or
again
Alan Moore's Jerusalem
Alan
is
Moore's
also
Jerusalem
a big
as well.
example of that. He basically created like this magical realist magnum opus that also is this working class fable that is deeply.
Did you say Alan Watts?
No, Alan Moore. As in the comic book writer behind V for Vendetta, Watchmen, all of that stuff. He wrote this book called Jerusalem, which is basically this magical, realist, amazing piece of fiction that also is this working class like magnum opus at the same time. That's also deeply anti-capitalist. There are so many different ways that people can engage with this stuff. But yeah, I was just gonna say, my route to anti-capitalism did not come through reading any fucking theorists. It came through art. It came through pop culture. There are a million ways that you can engage with this stuff. But yeah,
I was just going to say that, like, as far as like books that can do philosophy, like there's, Sophie's World and Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Those are a couple of classics. If you are new to philosophy and you're looking to read something that's more like a novel, like those are fantastic for it. There's also the Dream Weaver. I think Cloud Atlas gets into philosophy a lot more. It's in the text form, though I haven't read that one. But there's a lot of different books that kind of can do this, can bring, like the book For Futures by Peter Fraze. It's like straight theory, but presented in about as accessible a way as Kill All Normies, right? Yeah. Like it's a fantastic and short little book, but it's just every time I go back to it, I'm like, this is such a masterpiece, right?
Well, you're writing a book, aren't you?
Yeah. So I see your work and Angela Nagel's work and a lot of these other kind of books recently.
Oh, don't shortchange yourself. You're writing a book. Like you've talked to me about writing a book a few times, and you've usually conveyed very interesting ideas to me.
Yeah. No, I wasn't saying.
But not now.
Not now. Don't fucking talk about it now.
Why did you think I was shortchanging myself? I don't understand.
Because you went right past it like it was nothing.
Oh no, yeah. I was gonna say that like I just feel like there's a lot of different like important contributions recently that I'm looking to for inspiration, and not because of like these are the ideas that I need to use, but more like these are fellow leftists who know how to write about ideas like this that are very complicated and then bring it into like plebe speak, right? And so that's what I love. And the insight that Jake, you're just picking up on about like how the medium affects it or shapes it or whatever. This is the I guess the fundamental axiom of critical media theory would be that the medium is the message, right? It's McLuhan's insight, and then a lot of my book is going to be kind of like building on that, because critical media theory, if you look it up right now, it isn't a thing, but what I call critical media theory is technology of philosophy, critique of political economy, media studies, all of these things intertwined in a way that says, okay, in the tradition of, Marxian analysis, in the tradition of McLuhanite like analysis, like there are material ways that the media we use, and when I say media, like people usually think of like the media, but really what do I mean? I mean mediums. Right? Yeah. The different kinds of technology that we use to communicate and extend our sense organs on this planet to understand things, fundamentally, they shape the message in all of these ways that we don't immediately usually understand. But maybe you've had like a little insight, like, like there would have been no Trump had there not been Twitter, right? Like at least he wouldn't have become president. So it's like, in a way, this platform made him what he was. It's like Rogan existed outside of YouTube, but YouTube being what it was, it was Rogan who was there and not someone else.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing is like what we're seeing also is I don't think McLuhan gets. I've not read all of his work, obviously, but the audience and the messenger are also both shaped by one another and by the medium. And so this is the whole question of like, if they come out with a new medium like Twitch, for people to be able to do something that was already kind of being done on YouTube. It fosters entire new dynamics. And there might be some like analogy between these things, but it's fundamentally different every time. And so when you talk about like, oh, now they're making, like we've got like the TikTok version of YouTube or something, or of books, because they also have this for books, right? Like they have like a version of Blinkist, yeah, for Audible. It's like 10-minute Audible.
I actually use that to sort of like with books that I've read, like what. First is tragedy, then is farce. They have a Blinkist for it. And I use that in order to force myself to think about the book.
Yeah. No, that's the thing is like every time they do it, it's going to be profit driven, but we will always be looking as educators or as creatives for what are the new creative possibilities here?
Yes.
What are the new educational or pedagogical kind of opportunities here that we get to? 'Cause there's always an opportunity, and there's always like a new problem. Right.
Yes.
Like Paul Virilio is also in that tradition of critical media theory. And he says that when you invent the ship, you invent the shipwreck, and it's like, yeah. And when you invent Twitch, you invent destiny.
That's without.
Burn.
Yep.